What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmakers Corner podcast. I'm one of your hosts for today, Simon Voyanos, aka Coach V. This is episode 451. I am recording this intro, though, on April 6th, 2025, Sunday here. And this is your 2025 Week 7 Women's College Flag Football recap. A lot of action going down in the NAIA as we kind of start to wind down here at the end of the season. So this is probably the biggest week NAIA-wise in women's college flag football as we wind things down here and get to the end of the season. Regular season ends here, I believe, for the Sun Conference after next week. And then in the KCAC, they have next week. And then I want to say one more game after that. And then it will be postseason stuff going on from there. And then for a lot of the independents here, NAIA-wise, that is, they'll be playing probably up to the end of the month here as they enter the Nationals tournament, which will be exciting. For other flag football teams, D2, D3, junior colleges, that end is also approaching as well. I know we have some Atlantic East play that's going down here as teams are settling in over there. Junior colleges are kind of wrapping things up as well as, well, they don't play in conferences. At least I don't think any of them really do. And so they'll be facing off here at Nationals in just roughly a month or so from now. So their season is also winding down. So a lot of things winding down, but a big shakeup here as there is a lot of action this week. We're going to recap all of those games, talk Playmaker of the Week here, and then go into our NAIA rankings as we usually do. So let's just go ahead and hop into it here.
Now, there was another game on Wednesday here in the KCAC, and that was Kansas Wesleyan and University of St. Mary's here. Kansas Wesleyan, the Coyotes here, jumped out to an early lead and coasted to a 38-15 win. Chihiro Owada went 24 of 31 for 310 yards and 5 scores to no picks, finding Duquy, Lucas, and Whitfield all in the end zone. And that trio of receivers combined for over 230 yards. Also, shout out to Colorado represent Addie Cadwell for rushing for a touchdown in this one. And then defensively for K-Dub, Wood and Roman both notched an interception. But something that I find a little interesting is there were no recorded sacks this game for the K-Dub defense. Now for USM, they were led in pass attempts by Ariana Rivera, who went 20 of 32 for 193 yards with a touchdown and a pick. London Reed also threw some passes and ran for a score. As far as the receiving department goes, Charisma Delgado had a pretty nice game, posting 5 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown. And then defensively, Talia Wright got an interception against the backups of K-Dub. So on the season here, that puts K-Dub at 10-3. Meanwhile, when you look at the University of St. Mary's, they are sitting at a record of 3-6 on the season and 1-5 in conference play. Hey y'all, it's Kodey Stoffer here, and just to keep you all in the loop, the way that we are approaching this now, for the rest of the season, that is we're going to be kind of dividing it up by conference, non-conference, kind of stuff like that here. So I get the opportunity to talk about the KCAC this week here. And the first game that I'm going to talk about is Southwestern and Bethel here. Now, this game wasn't particularly close. Southwestern ran away with this one 68-0, led by Kennedy Hayes, 16 of 21, 313 yards, 4 touchdowns to just 1 interception. Olivia Menfrey here being the biggest benefactor in the receiving department, 6 receptions, 114 yards, and 2 scores. Meanwhile, the defense obviously put on a show, 4 picks and 5 sacks. 3 of those sacks were Andrea Moon here, while Solis, Williams-Jones, and Menfrey all had interceptions. That would be Bethel's only game of the week here, and I am going to just try and update their spot in the standings here, as Bethel did not get the chance to play Heston College, as they were originally projected to. So now that puts Bethel at 0-9 on the season, and that's something that I'm going to just try and do heading forward for these teams as we get to the end of their week, but Southwestern still has another one.
All right, now quick score update between a couple of junior college teams down in Florida. We got Pasco Hernando State College versus Daytona State, and this really wasn't a close one. I mean, the first game wasn't that close of a game, but Daytona State goes ahead and wins 45-0. That puts them over 500 now at 5-4. For Pasco, in their first season, kind of struggling here. I mean, that's to be expected. They got one win, it looks like, so far this season, but like I said, have been struggling so far. So there you go there. Daytona State takes care of Pasco 45-0, also breaking a 2-game losing streak.
In the Thomas versus Weber game, Thomas stomped on Weber in that one 44-6. Keelan Coleman had the best game of her young career in that one, going 18 for 20 for 238 yards and 5 touchdowns. Janae Scott was the leading receiver for Thomas with 6 catches for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also being the co-leader in flagpoles with 8. And then you also had Zoe Jackson, who caught 3 touchdowns on offense. Your playmaker of the game in that one goes to Keelan Coleman. St. Thomas versus Life was a great game, with St. Thomas putting up 20 in the fourth quarter to avoid the upset against Life in their 33-25 win there. Brooke Bogatz went 27 for 39 for 263 yards with 4 touchdowns and an interception. Rayona Baker and Leah Cruz were the leading receivers, with Baker getting 5 catches for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Cruz with 11 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. Defensively, Tashumba Washington snagged 2 interceptions to add to her MVP campaign, and Dominique Perez-Moore had an interception as well. For Life, Altiera Gooch had 122 yards and a touchdown on 5 receptions, and Latoya Mitchell led the team with 8 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown. Defensively for the Running Eagles, Michaela Modeste had an interception. Your playmaker of the game for this one will go to St. Thomas's Brooke Bogatz. Warner stomped on Point 45-20. In that one, Catherine Hutchinson had 6 passing touchdowns, with 3 of them going to Anna Vincenzini, who also led the team with a ridiculous 14 catches for 100 yards, and then she also had an interception on defense. You also had Angeline Bunting, who also had 2 receiving touchdowns. Your playmaker of the game in this one is going to go to Anna Vincenzini.
All right, now let's go ahead and talk about one of the games here from the Michigan Invitational here. That started on April 4th, Friday. We have number 16, Graceland, playing number 13, Campbellsville. Graceland, we obviously saw last week, and then Campbellsville we saw live last week, so this will be an interesting one. But let's go ahead and go into the first quarter here. Graceland starting with the ball. Caitlin Shannon, the quarterback/coach, starting at quarterback. She finds a Mary Bird on the out route to make it 2nd and inches. Shannon will then go ahead and scramble for the first down, making it 1st and 13. And then on 1st and 13, Caitlin Shannon throws the out route. This pass is bobbled by a receiver, and it's ripped away by Sunita Scott here for a big-time interception for Campbellsville. That sets them up with a 1st and 5 pass midfield with about 10 minutes left, 9:55 in this game. And so here we go. Corrine Talkington, the freshman starting quarterback for Campbellsville, gets it started with an option here that she pitches right to the star, Presley Payne. That goes for about 3. After an incompletion, it's another option pitch left to Payne this time, but she is stopped just short, so now it's 4th and 1. On 4th down here, Talkington looking to pass, eventually scrambles and just barely gets the first down to give them a 1st and 20 in the red zone. After a drop here on 2nd down, Corrine Talkington gets a snap and throws it right up the seam to her fellow freshman and wide receiver Alex Odom for the easy touchdown to make it 6-0. On the PAT, Talkington delivers a nice pass under pressure to, I believe, Carly Troutman to make it 7-0 with around 6 minutes left. Now, Graceland, they have the ball here looking to go ahead and get on the board here after a tough mistake and interception, which wasn't really Caitlin Shannon's fault on the last play here. And so here's what happens on 1st down. Shannon rolls out right before lofting one deep to a wide open Delaney Mondino, who rips off a massive reception here before a diving pull stops her short of breaking this one for a potential touchdown here. So the standout freshman getting involved early on here. And so now it's 1st and 1. past midfield, a 46-yard play on that pass. They go ahead and run a speed option, and it's pitched left to Shiloh Barrios, who puts them in the red zone here. And then they go hurry up here, and so on first down, Shannon scrambles right for a good amount of yards. It's now 2nd and 8. Second down here, Shannon goes right again, and this time finds a wide open, I think it's a Mary Bird. Couldn't quite see who it is, but I think it's Bird, to go ahead and put them on the board. PAT is no good though, so they're still down by a point. Now, Campbellsville with 3 minutes left. Here's what happens. Talkington finds Odom again. She makes it 1st and 13 approaching midfield. But then on 1st and 13, Talkington gets a snap, has some time here, and then launches one deep. And this is just an ill-advised throw here as this pass floats and is eventually picked off by another freshman here on the field in Delaney Mondino, who goes ahead and sets up Graceland with a 1st and 18 past midfield, 1:37 left here in the first quarter. First down here, Shannon scrambles left for about 6 yards. She then throws a check down that goes for 3. So now that brings up 3rd down here, and Caitlin Shannon rolls out right looking for a receiver. But eventually a pair of Campbellsville defenders eventually cuts that time short here and pulls her flag for a sack. So now it's 4th and 11, and that's where we pick up at the start of the second quarter here. 4th down, and Shannon checks it down to Shiloh Barrios. She's wearing number 19, by the way, so just throwing that out there. And she breaks a couple of tackles and then burns the Campbellsville defense to the house to make it 12-7 here. I mean, it was basically 4th and long here, and it was just bad flag pulling by Campbellsville on that play, so that's unfortunate. Shannon would then go back to Barrios, who would get the PAT to put them up 13-7 with 11:40 left here. So big play by Shiloh Barrios to break what looked like to be a potential turnover on downs to a touchdown. And so there you go, 11:40 left. Campbellsville looking to reply. Here's what happens. Corrine Talkington rolls out right, finds Alex Odom on the drag. She goes ahead and makes it 1st and 13 approaching midfield. They then go ahead and run a speed option left, and it's pitched left to Payne, who has a lane down the left sideline, almost cuts it back for the touchdown, but is stopped just short here. A massive play that completely flips the field here, as it's now 1st and 7 in the red zone, 7 yards away from a touchdown. And on 1st down here, Talkington rolls out right and finds Alex Odom, who makes a great catch and toe taps this one in to make it 13-13. It's looking like Campbellsville has found a pair of freshman studs here in Corrine Talkington and Alex Odom as they are going off to start this game. On the PAT, Talkington finds JC Harper on an easy throw to the flats to give Campbellsville the lead once more, 14-13. And so back and forth game so far here, but Graceland still about 10 minutes in this second quarter, a chance to potentially score here and make something happen. And so here's what happens on this next drive for Graceland. On the first play, Caitlin Shannon runs around and scrambles for about 5. On the next play, she buys some time here, eventually finds a Mary Bird over the middle for a nice play. That makes it 1st and 9 approaching midfield. After an incompletion on 1st down, on 2nd down, Caitlin Shannon threads the needle to Grace Jensen on the post route. A nice throw here to make it 1st and 6 across midfield. On 1st down here, Shannon dumps it off to Barrios, who takes a shot into the end zone on a double pass, but it is incomplete here. Following that 2nd down, Shannon scrambles right. She gives Graceland the 1st down in the red zone. After another scramble that goes for 3 here, Shannon tries to check it down on 2nd down to Barrios, but it's low-key dangerous here as the linebacker broke on this ball and was able to get a hand in there, but this ended up being a great catch by Barrios, who makes the contested catch and then rips off a solid gain to make it 3rd and 3. They then go ahead and call a dive to Barrios, but she stops short, only a gain of 1. So now it's 4th and 2. And on 4th down here, Caitlin Shannon with the snap, rolling right, looking to pass, throws it, but Presley Payne on the rush, deflects it at the line. Big play by Payne. That's a turnover on downs. And so Campbellsville now has a 1st and 18 with about 2:20 left here. And so first down here, it's a speed option, pitched right to Presley Payne. Breaks off a nice gain here of about 12. On 2nd down, Talkington with a nice touch pass to the corner here to Ava Kelly, another freshman, to now make it 1st and 7 approaching midfield. 1 minute, 44 seconds and counting as they are walking up to the line here. And on 1st down, Talkington takes a shot down the left sideline and finds Alex Odom on a dot here for a massive play. It's now 1st and 15 in the red zone. First down here, this Campbellsville offense on fire right now. Talkington begins to scramble before pitching it left here to Presley Payne, who almost scores here. A nice heads-up play. Penalty would also be thrown on Graceland, so now it's 1st and 4, still in the red zone. An incompletion on 1st down brings up 2nd down here, where Corrine Talkington gets a snap, keeps the speed option, but is stopped just short here. Now 3rd and 1. They then just go ahead and call a direct snap to Presley Payne, who finishes the drive that she started on a dive to make it 20-13. PAT is picked from there on here, but Campbellsville goes into halftime with the 20-13 lead over Graceland here, as this offense is kind of humming to start this game and this invitational. Now, going into the 3rd quarter, Campbellsville actually starts with it here, but unfortunately on 3rd and what looks like to be 20 here, the first off, they would get the 1st down originally thanks to a slant to Odom, but then they would find themselves a couple plays later in a 3rd and 20 situation after an illegal forward pass here. And on 3rd down, Talkington takes a shot deep, but this one is almost picked off again by Delaney Mondino. Fortunately for them, she drops it, so they end up punting. Graceland, they get the ball, but a big sack by the freshman for Campbellsville, Rashia Minix, I want to say, would eventually force this drive to fizzle out, and so they would punt it back. Campbellsville, they will get the ball here, and they would not get too much going. They would get past midfield at some point, but a sack by Amiri Bird would go ahead and set them back here. And then another sack on 4th and 15 eventually by Amiri Bird would force the turnover on downs, as both offenses have begun to cool off. Graceland would get the ball. They would go 3 and out here. A nice play by Tamaya Woody would go ahead and put them in a 3rd and long situation, and that's when this one would just basically fizzle out from there. And so let's go ahead and fast forward to the 4th quarter here. Campbellsville would get the ball back, but they would go 3 and out. And so Graceland, they have the ball with about 10 minutes left, 1st and 17 approaching midfield. It's been a little bit quiet here so far in the second half, but this is where things begin to pick up. Caitlin Shannon on 1st down buys some time, finds Bird near the right sideline for a good gain of 16. After a drop, they then go ahead and run a direct snap to Barrios, who gives them a 1st down across the midfield, 1st and 16. On this next play here, Shannon just lets it fly on the post to Makia Verdun, I want to say, for a massive play that almost goes for a touchdown, but a diving flagpole would prevent that. But the damage is done, though. It's 1st and 10 in the red zone, a huge splash play for Graceland. And so here we go. 1st down, Shannon rolls out right, finds Kimani Freeman wide open here to make it 20-19. On the PAT here, Rashia Minix, the rusher for Campbellsville, applies pressure, forces the incompletion, and so Campbellsville is able to hold on to their lead here, only by 1 point, but that's all you need, as there are no field goals. They would have to get the ball and score again to retake the lead, and so 7:44 left here. Here is what happens. 1st down here, Talkington checks it down to Itsan Rojas Gibbs. She makes it 1st and 15. She then tries to zip it to the corner here on this next 1st down play, but she just does not see Grace Jensen, who jumps this route for a massive interception that now puts Graceland in the red zone. And so here we go, Caitlin Shannon and the offense taking over in the red zone. 1st down's incomplete. 2nd down, it's a snap to Barrios, who scrambles for a couple, making it 2nd and 15. there is then an incompletion here. And so that brings up third down, and on third, Shannon under pressure goes left and just tries to lob one into the end zone here. Kind of an ill-advised pass as it's in double coverage, but it is knocked away here. So there you go. And so now that brings up, I believe, fourth down here. And on fourth down, Shannon under pressure. She is trying to extend this play, and she is, but just kind of takes too long. Tries to throw this one away here, but it's just an ill-advised pass as she's fading away as she does it since she's under pressure. And so this will end up being a pretty easy interception by JC Harper. And so now Campbellsville has 3:42 left, first and 17, approaching midfield, still leading by 1. They just need to get a couple first downs here to put this game away. A score would for sure probably put this one away. And so first down, it's a pitch right to Payne that goes for no gain. Second down, Talkington rolls right and launches one deep here, and it's just not there. Well covered and overthrown, so incomplete. Now that brings up third down here, but before the play, there's the 2-minute warning. And so after that, third down, it's a pitch left to Payne, who is stopped short of the first. Does get a nice gain of about 11 here. And so Campbellsville, they still decide to punt it since it's 4th and 6, playing the field positioning game. And so Graceland, they now have a 1st and 18 out of the first quadrant. They're now approaching midfield. On first down, Shannon checks it down to Barrios. That goes for 3. They then call a timeout right away. Following that, they roll Shannon out right, who throws a dot to Amiri Bird, who makes a nice sideline catch to now make it 3rd and 5. On third down, Shannon rolls out right again and throws another dot to Grace Jensen, this time near the right sideline again on what looks like to just be a very long post. It's now 1st and 4 past midfield. Another timeout is called at 50 seconds here, and that was a huge splash play to really kick this drive into gear here. And so after the timeout here, first down, Shannon rolls out right again, and this time she finds Amir Bird again for another sideline catch on the right side again to now make it 1st and 9 in the red zone. So 3 straight sideline catches here and great throws to go ahead and get Graceland moving. They're now in the red zone, by the way, here as she does get out of bounds at the 39-second mark. First down here, Shannon scrambles left. She goes ahead and gets about 4. Following that, she checks it down to Barrios on second down here. And it's just kind of a bad breakdown of the defense as they were going hurry up, because she checks it down to Barrios left, who just sprints out, and she's wide open and just walks it into the end zone to make it 25-20. And then Barrios, she was really feeling it. She spikes the ball, flips, does all that. That's obviously unsportsmanlike. So that pushes them back way back here, and that forces Caitlin Shannon to hold on to the ball longer than she wanted to. Minix gets a sack, so it stays at 25-20. But Campbellsville only has 21 seconds left here after Graceland was able to put together a great drive to go ahead and take that lead. And so first down is incomplete. On second down, Talkington throws it over the middle, but this one is just slightly tipped, I think, and it's picked off by Kimani Freeman, and that will end this game as Graceland gets the 25-20 upset here in a tough game for Campbellsville, where this one really did come down to a couple of defensive plays for Campbellsville that they just didn't make. Just missed flagpoles, miscommunications. That last drive was rough. Just seeing them basically run, not the same play, but the same concept, it felt like, to that right sideline. And I feel like the safeties and corners just weren't seeing that. So that's rough there. And like I said, just a lot of opportunities where they could have won this game a lot easier than they lost it, in my opinion. And unfortunately for them, the defense just was not as sharp as they could have been. For Graceland, though, they played a great game. Playmaker of the game, I think, is obviously Caitlin Shannon. She had probably her best career game, I would say, to start here against a very quality Campbellsville team. That last drive was a big time. Did make a really bad mistake in the drive, in the second to the last drive before, where she threw a tough pass to JC Harper. And then before that, almost threw an interception into double coverage, but settled it down, led a great drive at the end here. Your classic 2-minute, 1-minute drill here and would lead them to the win. And so I think your playmaker of the game, it's pretty simple. It is Caitlin Shannon, thanks to her heroics in this game against Campbellsville. Like I said, final score of this one, Graceland, previously number 16 Graceland gets the upset over number 13 Campbellsville, 25-20. All right, now real quick, let's talk about Milligan versus Rockford. They would face off for the second straight weekend here. Saw them play last week, I believe. And this one wasn't super close. Rockford would put together a nice drive, ending with Amari Camacho Anderson finding Claire Strong on a tough throw over the middle here, where Claire Strong made a very aggressive catch through contact and then dove into the end zone to give them the early 6-0 lead. That was with about 6 minutes left. But then Milligan would go on and score 31 unanswered points, starting with Bridget Keiser finding Sakia Newell, ending a long drive here on a short touchdown pass in the flats at 2:48 in the first quarter. That would give them their first score. Then it looks like Sophia Ortiz got a pick six with 2:08 left here in the first. Following that, Milligan will get the ball back, and Bridget Keiser would end that drive here in the second quarter with 6 minutes left, thanks to a swing route to Krista Quinn. And then near the end of the second, Bridget Keiser would top off another successful drive with a slot fade route throw to Sarah Rancorn to make it 24-6 here. Milligan would end up winning 31-6, and I think it's pretty obvious who the playmaker of the game is. It's Bridget Keiser. Led a number of long drives, good drives here, and threw a bunch of touchdown passes in this one as Milligan takes care of business against Rockford. Moving on, we have Graceland versus Benedictine. And by the way, Benedictine, Rockford, Villa Maria, who we'll talk about later on in the episode, all basically D3 programs, I believe. So there you go. And Graceland, they would play Benedictine, and they would dominate this one here. To start, Caitlin Shannon would throw a post route to Amiri Bird at 8:36 in the first quarter to put them up 6-0. PAT would be good, making it 7-0. Shannon later on their second drive would find Delaney Mondino in the flats to make it a 2-score game. PAT would be good with 2:32 left in the first. And then still in the first quarter, Caitlin Shannon lofts a nice pass to Mondino to make it 20-0 here, 21-0 at 1:16 left, as Graceland would end up running away with this one, 41-0 here. Playmaker of the game is Caitlin Shannon once more, who orchestrated a number of scoring drives for Graceland as they get another win. Moving on, we got Campbellsville versus Rockford, another matchup we are seeing for the second straight weekend here. And Campbellsville would win this one pretty easily. They would start their freshman quarterback, Amani Scott, in this game, who we did not really get to see, at least on offense, last weekend. So it was good to see her get in there. And she would start by finding Alex Odom on a nice touchdown pass here and a good PAT with 3:09 in the first to put them up 7-0. Scott would then go back to Alex Odom, who would make a toe tap catch to make it 13-0 with 10:20 left in the second. PAT makes it 14-0. And then in the second quarter, Amani Scott finds Alex Odom once more with 6:53 left here to make it 20-0. And then this one would be over. Campbellsville would win 40-0. Playmaker of the game, though, Alex Odom, who is emerging as one of the best freshman wide receivers in the entire country. So good to see her get going and have another excellent game here for Campbellsville as they beat Rockford, D3 Rockford, 40-0. And then last game from the Friday part of this Michigan Invitational, we have Milligan versus Villa Maria, which is a smaller school, not technically NCAA D3, but they are a smaller college out here, which I would probably classify as a D3. And Milligan would take care of them pretty easily, 42-0. Here's kind of how the game started. Keiser would find Sarah Rancorn at 8:57 to make it 6-0 in the first quarter. Following that, on the second drive, Keiser finds Krista Quinn in the flats to make it 14-0. PAT would be good there to make it 14-0 with 2:51 left in the first. And then following that, Keiser would find Reinhardt again to make it 20-0 on the PAT. And sorry, the PAT would be Keiser finding Reinhardt, and then the touchdown would be a whole bunch of pitches scored by Krista Quinn at the end, I believe, with 10:25 left in the second. And then I would say once more, playmaker of the game is Bridget Keiser, as she led big drive after big drive here. And so Milligan, they take care of business versus Villa Maria 42-0. Moving on, we now have number 9 Milligan, versus number 16 Graceland here. And Milligan would go up pretty early in this game here in the first quarter. Bridget Keiser finds Ashton Worley on the drag route to make it 6-0. The PAT would be good. A pass to Krista Quinn would make it 8-0. And you got to remember, Milligan, they always go for 2, so just keep that in mind. Later on in the first quarter, Keiser would find Caitlin Quinn to make it 14-0 with 2:33 left. PAT would be no good. Moving on, fast forward to the second quarter as Milligan is just getting Graceland off the field here. Keiser would find Krista Quinn at the end of this third drive at 4:23 in the second to make it 20-0. PAT would be no good. But then Graceland, they would go ahead and respond with a nice touchdown at the 3:27 mark. And Caitlin Shannon would find a wide open receiver up the seam. Couldn't see the number here, unfortunately. That would go ahead and put them on the board, making it 14-6. On the PAT, they would go for 2, and Shannon would roll out right before throwing over the middle to make it 20-8. But Bridget Keiser and this Milligan offense would respond. Keiser going deep down the right sideline to Caitlin Quinn to make it 26-8 in the second with 1:57 left. And then from there on, they would not look back as, Graceland would score a couple more points, but so would Milligan as they would win pretty easily here, 46-26 here. Playmaker of the game is Bridget Keiser as she had another great game against this team and just continued to score to put Graceland away. And then for Graceland, not a bad showing, just a very slow start to the first quarter. They would score in the second, but by then they were trading blows with Milligan, who was already up by 3 scores, so they just weren't going to be able to catch up at that point there. So unfortunate, but not the worst performance from Graceland, so you would take that. But Milligan keeps their win streak alive here with this nice 46-26 win over Graceland. All right, Coach V here. We are in post-edit, and I don't know why, but I guess we just forgot to do Point versus Weber, and it is 9:30 Mountain Time when I'm recording this. So, Point, they lost to Weber 20-6 here, and yeah, that is pretty much it. So there you go. Are now to start Saturday here, at least for the Michigan Invitational games here on Saturday, April 5th. We had Villa Maria playing Benedictine here, and the stream was kind of rough in this one, but Villa Maria would run away with this one and win 25-6 here. Unfortunately, no box score stats, so there you go. It is what it is.
What is good, y'all? This is Gino with the Playmakers Corner podcast, and it is time for a big-time recap. We got number 5 Warner facing off against number 2 Thomas in a battle between 2 perennial contenders here in the Sun Conference. A win here for Thomas will secure them home field advantage throughout the Sun Conference tournament, so there is a lot on the line here. But let's not waste any more time and jump right into this recap. It will be Warner ball to start us off here in this one, 1st and 6. The QB, Catherine Hutchinson's pass is nearly picked off, so it will be 2nd and 6. On 2nd down, Hutchinson connects with Angeline Bunting for 4 yards. On 3rd and short, Janae Scott breaks up a short pass to make it 4th and 2, and Warner is going to go for it here as they are still in the first zone, but they are feeling risky here. As Hutchinson takes the snap, she rolls out right and launches it deep, but Diva Jones comes in and breaks up the pass. She was absolutely glued to the receiver there, so that will be a big-time turnover on downs as it will be 1st and 18 in the red zone for Thomas after that big-time defensive stand. On 1st down, the freshman QB, Keelan Coleman, is in, and she connects with Destiny Lockett here for 3 yards. On 2nd and 15, Keelan Coleman finds Maddie Hoagland for 5 yards. And on 3rd and 10, Keelan Coleman takes the snap, steps up, and has Giselle Jones open in the end zone for the touchdown. The extra point is no good, but Thomas takes a 6-0 lead early on here with 7:26 left in the first quarter. It will be 1st and 6 for Warner after that score. Jessica Finley makes the grab on 1st down on a short crosser for 4 yards, and then Catherine Hutchinson finds Jade Mazziata for a big-time 1st down over the middle. On 1st and 11 here, a quick pass goes for 3 yards, and then Destiny Lockett breaks up the pass on the next play to make it 3rd and 8. On 3rd down, it is Destiny Lockett again as she steps up and breaks up yet another pass. It will be 4th and 8 here for Warner, and they will punt it here. It is now 1st and 17 for Thomas with 2 minutes left here in the first quarter as Warner calls timeout here with 1:57 left. Coming out of the timeout, Keelan Coleman slings it deep and finds Destiny Lockett over the middle for a 1st down across midfield. On 1st and 12, Janae Scott and Keelan Coleman connect on a quick curl for 4 yards, and then Coleman fires it to Destiny Lockett for a 1st down in the red zone. It will be 1st and 15 here for the Nighthawks. Coleman finds Zoe Jackson here on 1st down for 4 yards, and then an incomplete pass takes us to the end of the first quarter. Thomas is up on Warner 6-0. It will be 3rd and 11 here for Thomas to start us off here in the second quarter. Keelan Coleman finds Janae Scott for 6 yards, and it will be 4th and 5 here for Thomas. On 4th down, Kiana Akol is open over the middle, and Thomas takes a 12-0 lead early on here in the second quarter. The extra point was no good, so that will keep it 12-0 as it is now 1st and 6 here for Warner. They are down 2 scores. On 1st down, Catherine Hutchinson finds a receiver for a 1st down. On 1st and 18, Anna Vincenzini makes the grab for a few yards on a short crosser. On 2nd and 13, Caitlin Herb breaks up the pass on the rush. It will be 3rd and 13. On 3rd and long, Herb nearly gets the sack and forces yet another incompletion. It will be 4th and 13 as Warner will be forced to punt for the second straight drive here with 8 minutes left. It is now 1st and 9 here for Thomas near midfield. On 1st down, Keelan Coleman fires it deep to Giselle Jones on a post, and Jones burns the defender for the touchdown. It is 18-0 with 7:13 left in the first half. The extra point is no good, so it will stay here at 18-0 as Thomas is rolling here on both sides of the ball. It is now 1st and 6 here for Warner. A pass goes for a few yards, and on 2nd and 3, Caitlin Herb nearly gets the sack, but forces yet another incompletion. On 3rd and 3, Diva Jones nearly gets a pick 6, but a flag will make it 1st and 13 here for Warner. The pass is dropped on 1st down, and then a quick pass goes to Anna Vincenzini for 6 yards to make it 3rd and 6. After a drop pass, it will be 4th and 6, and Warner is going to punt for the 3rd straight drive here with 3:30 left in the first half. It is 1st and 17 for Thomas now after the punt, but they would actually end up going 3 and out here with Talisha Perry getting a big-time sack on 3rd down to help force that punt. It is now 1st and 18 for Warner with 1:11 left in the first half, and they are pinned against their own end zone after an awesome punt from Caitlin Herb. On 1st down, Caitlin Herb nearly forces a safety, but Hutchinson gets it out just in time to make it 2nd and 18. Catherine Hutchinson with her best pass of the day here on 2nd down as she finds Jessica Finley in stride for a nice gain. It will be 3rd and 5 as Warner calls timeout here with 47 seconds left in the first half. Coming out of the timeout, Kiara Knight drops an interception, but that will make it 4th and 5, and Warner will punt it once again. It is 1st and 17 here near midfield for Thomas with 26 seconds left after a solid return from Kiara Knight. On 1st down, Holly Nieher finds Kiana Akol for 8 yards as Thomas calls timeout here with 15 seconds left. Coming out of the timeout, Keelan Coleman hits Janae Scott on a slant, and she flips it back to Akol for a 1st down in the red zone. It will be 1st and 13 as Thomas sets himself up with a chance to score here at the end of the first half. On 1st and 13, Keelan Coleman launches it to Giselle Jones in the back of the end zone, and she makes the grab and stays in bounds for the touchdown with 1 second left on the clock. That was a ridiculous throw by Coleman there, and what a play by Jones to make the grab and stay in bounds. The extra point is good there as Thomas takes a 25-0 lead, and that will end this recap as Thomas goes up 4 scores here on Warner to close us out here in the first half. And Angeline Bunting would end up getting a touchdown for Warner way later in the game, and the final score in this one will be Thomas 25, Warner 6. Your playmaker of the game in this one will be Keelan Coleman. The freshman went 16 for 22 for 180 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no turnovers in this big-time win over Warner. And that, folks, will wrap things up here in this recap, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out. Next up here, we have St. Thomas, who squashed Reinhardt 46-7. Sydney Brooks got a lot of snaps at QB, going 14 for 20 for 140 yards with 5 touchdowns and no turnovers. Rayona Baker caught a touchdown along with 2 interceptions on defense, and then Jada Graham and Kaylee Miller both caught 2 touchdowns apiece. Your playmaker of the game is going to go to Rayona Baker for those 2 interceptions and then her 4 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown on offense.
Now, this next game here took place between Southwestern and Midland here. Midland here would jump out to a 13-0 lead before Southwestern would score on a 65-yard touchdown pass from Kennedy Hayes to Tegan Smith. But after they allowed that score, the Warriors never looked back, clamped down, and ran away with this one, winning 33-6. Ione Kaio here, another phenomenal game, 25 of 42, and went with 4 touchdowns to just 1 interception. Aliyah Livingston, Olivia Dominguez-Millsop, and Emily Farring combined for 14 receptions for 198 yards and 3 scores, led by Livingston's 2 receiving touchdowns. And her 2 touchdowns were matched by a pair of interceptions that she forced on defense in the big win. Now, Smith had the 65-yard score for Southwestern, but that was about it for the offense. Meanwhile, defensively, Smith had 6 flag pulls, and Olivia Manfrey also got an interception here. So, on this season here, that puts Southwestern at 6-4, or 6-5, I should actually say, with that loss to Midland. And for Midland, this actually evens them out at 6-6 here. Pretty tough schedule that they've had as well. They came off to a little bit of a bumpy start, but now they are even Steven here at this point in the season.
All right, now let's go ahead and talk about a couple of Florida Gateway games here to finish this Saturday recap from April 5th. Florida Gateway would play Atlantis, and they would also play Keiser University, so 2 very different teams. And they would beat Atlantis as expected, 46-0, just absolutely dominating that one. And then against Keiser, this one was a little bit of a defensive showdown here. Keiser would end up just barely winning this one 7-0 thanks to a score in the 3rd quarter. Haley Young would find Sophia Caprio for a touchdown there. And then they would also get the PAT after that, which would be a pass to Ashley Clam to give them the 7-0 lead. And then from then on, Florida Gateway, I mean, they just kind of struggled to get things going. I mean, Emma Wagman would get a sack to begin their drive here after the Keiser score, so that would be kind of rough. And then eventually that drive would fizzle out. Keiser would then put together a very long drive starting at 8 minutes, ending at the, I want to say, 2:40 mark here. And so that would give Florida Gateway an opportunity to potentially tie this game here, but an intercepted pass by Samaya Bryant picking off Kayla Ludwig would give Keiser the ball. Fortunately for Florida Gateway, they would call their timeouts, play that whole game, and would get the ball back at 37 seconds left, but would not be able to really get anything going here, which would be just very unfortunate as this Keiser defense held strong, and they would preserve this win 7-0. Now, I do have stats from this game. Let's go ahead and start with Florida Gateway. Kayla Ludwig, 11 of 28, 104 yards and an interception there. Just kind of struggling against, I mean, this is a very good defense, so it makes sense in my opinion. Ainsley Little's 2 of 5 for 24 yards, and then their lead receiver was Tramisha Harris, 4 for 51, followed by Alexandra Harris with a 4 receptions for 30-yard game here. On defense, London Jenkins led with 5 tackles, 2 sacks, and then Hannah McIver also had an interception in this game. Obviously, it would not be enough for them. For Keiser, they got away with another game against a good team. Haley Young, 20 of 32, 169 yards, a touchdown. Also about 5 rushing yards here. As far as receiving goes, Sophia Caprio, 4 for 49 and a touchdown. Kennedy Foster, 4 for 42. Ashley Clam, 6 for 38. And Janasia Wilson, 5 for 29. On defense, Adriana Cavallati and Kennedy Foster tied with 3 tackles each. Kennedy Foster with 3 pass breakups in this game. Emma Wagenman with a sack and Samaya Bryant with a sack. Samaya Bryant, I would say, would be the playmaker of the game here, as that interception ended up being really costly. Not only cutting a Florida Gateway drive short, but also giving Keiser the ball for a pretty significant amount of time at the end there. So there you go there. Keiser just barely, but still beating Florida Gateway 7-0. All right, moving on, we have Campbellsville versus D3 Benedictine, and Campbellsville would pretty much win this one as expected, 54-6. They would get out to a fast start here. Corinne Talkington with the start, trying to get some confidence back after a very rough game here against Siena Heights, I want to say earlier on in the day. She would start by finding JC Harper in the flats at the 8-minute mark in the first quarter to put them up 6-0, and then would find Angie Beecher to make it 7-0. Later on at the 3:50 mark, she would go back to Harper before running in the PAT to make it 14-0, and then still in the first half, but in the second quarter now, Corinne Talkington finds Presley Payne on a nice catch here, a contested catch by Payne to make it 20-0. The PAT would be good to make it 21-0 at the 8:33 mark as Campbellsville gets back on track. Playmaker of the game is Corinne Talkington as she bounced back with a nice game here as they defeat Benedictine 54-6. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about number 15, Siena Heights, hosting number 13, Campbellsville, in this game here. I believe they played, I want to say they played last weekend as well. This time, though, home field advantage is flipped as Campbellsville is now in Michigan playing Siena Heights. And so here's what happens. First half was really quiet here until Sophia Panico found Alexa Brewster for a 3-yard touchdown at the 25-second mark in the second to give Siena Heights the 6-0 lead here. PAT would be no good, but this would be the first real action that we would get in this game here. But let's go ahead and start the third quarter. Basically, to start the third quarter, it's like the third play of their first drive. Campbellsville has the ball, and freshman quarterback Corinne Talkington finds J.C. Harper on an out route, and it looked like she got stopped here, but a couple of Siena Heights defenders just whiffed on her flag, not once, but a couple times, and what looked to be a short gain ended up being a 66-yard touchdown, as after they missed her flags, JC Harper just took off and scored to tie this game here. On the PAT, a direct snap to Presley Payne would actually give Campbellsville the 7-6 lead here. So there you go there. Now let's fast forward again to the fourth quarter. Both teams trading interceptions. Not the cleanest football here, but it comes down to the final minutes where Sophia Panico throws a dot down the right sideline to Kaimora Dunn for a huge 30-plus yard touchdown that she would rip off. This one was right in front of her, and Dunn did the rest from there to go ahead and put them up 12-7. Unfortunately for Campbellsville, they would get a chance to match here, but they would just end up going 3 and out. A couple incompletions would have them going nowhere here as Siena Heights winning at the last minute here. I don't want to say last second, but the last minute of this game in a big upset, a nice upset that eluded them just the week before here as they win this one 12 7. Playmaker of the game is kind of more Dunn, who had a great game here. I mean, obviously that last touchdown at the end ended up being the game winner, so you got to keep that in mind. But, the Siena Heights defense did a pretty good job playing Campbellsville here. This offense just struggled to get anything going as they just ended up getting ice cold. And then, fortunately for Siena Heights, they were able to avoid overtime and get a big play here down the right sideline. And it's tough because it was one-on-one, and Dunn just happened to win that matchup, and she would end up winning this game for Siena Heights. Like I said, final score, Siena Heights 12, Campbellsville 7. Another upset this weekend.
And for the most thrilling game of KCAC action this weekend, it has to be the Sunday matchup between Ottawa and Baker. This was Ottawa's senior day, I want to say, with the pregame ceremony here. And Baker here looking to make some noise and upset Ottawa. They've played them closer and closer each time. So let's jump in and see what happens. So Ottawa is going to start with the ball here and start off swinging with some haymakers here, going for a deep shot to start the game. But the receiver's absolutely blanketed here, and that is going to be an incompletion. Now, after a short Carrera scramble, it's going to be 3rd and 1, and they're going to motion Camacho right to left and find her in the flats for a first down and plenty more, putting the Braves on the 30-yard line. On the following play here, it's going to be Carrera rolling right and dotting up Camacho across midfield, but a penalty is going to negate the massive gain and put them back on their own 30. Now they're going to have a quick pass, and the receiver is going to catch it and spin out of a flagpole, sprinting ahead to the 20-yard line of Baker here. And on the very next play, they're going to motion left to right and throw the wheel route from that motion that is caught by Marley Spielberg for the touchdown here. But with the PAT no good, that's only going to be a 6-0 Ottawa lead with 9 minutes and 4 seconds in the first quarter. Now, the Ottawa defense feeds off of that energy from the offensive success here and forces a Baker 3-and-out here. And Ottawa is going to try and go up 2 scores here. But the Wildcats are going to minimize these checkdowns here with very quick flag pulls here, despite the Braves just narrowly finding Linkus in the flats to pick up a first down past midfield. However, it's going to be great defense here by Baker, applying constant pressure on Carrera, and on a play where Carrera is dancing around trying to find something deep, she lets one fly, and it's going to be picked off by Gabriella Zabaleta here and returned all the way to the Ottawa 27, giving Baker the ball in Ottawa territory. Now, Sue Kaufman here gets a huge flagpole for a loss to start the defense off, and then there's a little bit of a backfire here to end the first quarter as Kaufman gets another quick flagpole. To start the second quarter, though, Baker's going to get a big completion for a first down all into the red zone here. And inside of the red zone, Lorente here is going to wind up and attempt a pass, but it's going to fall incomplete. Waller is then going to throw an absolute laser down the seam that's caught inside of the 10-yard line. And then they're going to try a jump pass that's incomplete, but now it's 4th down and 6 for Baker here. And on the next play, they're going to try a pass attempt that is incomplete, but a flag on Ottawa is going to keep the drive alive for Baker, and they waste no time as Lorente winds up and zips it in to Jalen Harris for the score here. And when it is caught by Kaylee Phillips on the very next play, Baker now has a 7-6 lead with 8 minutes and 53 seconds left in the first half. Now, Ottawa here is going to take a deep shot to Linkus here that is not ruled in here, or not reeled in, I should say. Also, speaking of rulings here, the ref totally biffed it on the back pedal here. You thought that we didn't saw, but we did. And yeah, just going to point it out for a little fun for those watching back through this game on that third Ottawa drive. But anyways here, back to the football here. It's going to be a pass to Camacho on 2nd down. That is going to set up 3rd and very short, and then Spielberg is going to get the first down and get to the 25. Now Ottawa runs a triple option that is kept by Carrera for a solid gain, and then on the next play, Orsborn is going to catch and sprint ahead past midfield for another first down. They are clicking here. Orsborn is again getting the ball and getting to the Wildcat 25. Linkus is going to catch the very next pass in the flats to the right, making one defender absolutely whiff and then evading another one, tiptoeing down the sideline and into the end zone here, putting Ottawa up 12-7 with 4:35 left in the first half after the PAT is no good. Now, Baker here on their second play is going to get a catch from Lorente here, who sprints ahead for a first down to the 25-yard line. Waller then takes off left on the next play, picking up a few yards, and then there's going to be an incompletion here as it's ruled. I'm assuming that the ref had a better angle than me on that. I didn't see it pop out too crazy. But anyways, that'll make it 3rd down and 9, where Waller takes off right and ends up just a couple yards short of the first down, but the Wildcats are going to stay daring and go for it on 4th down. Now, there's going to be a low pass amidst the pressure here, but it's going to be reeled, or should I say scooped in, by Tara Lorente here and narrowly gained for a first down, keeping this drive alive with under 2 minutes to go in the first half. It's going to be a quick pass right that is caught and ran ahead for a gain of almost 10, and then a fire down the seam with a great all-hands catch, courtesy of Destiny Martinez here, that keeps this drive alive. But an incompletion has them staring down 4th down and 4 with 32 seconds to go here. And it's going to be a very tight window here, thanks to Jugani Washington's efforts on defense, forcing the turnover on downs. And that's not going to be enough time for Ottawa to score. So heading into halftime, it is a 12-7 Ottawa lead. Baker does get to start the second half with the football here, and Lorente is going to pass right once again, finding Harris here, who's just a yard shy of a first down. Waller then gets the snap and then shovels left to Lorente, who comes back right across the field, finding number 0, Mahogany Simmons here for a huge gain here, all the way to the 34-yard line. On the very next play, Waller is going to keep and extend between 2 defenders for a first down to midfield, and Baker's just going to keep rolling, getting to the 32, and then ahead just short to the red zone, and then a quick pass to number 8 over the middle here is going to put them into the red zone. That's Zabaleta on the catch, by the way, here. So, Ottawa reeling here, trying to get a stop in the red zone, but the Wildcats trying to take a lead with a touchdown here, and they will be benefited by Ottawa getting a penalty here on the next play, as the pass right is caught by Baker, and a hold will put the Wildcats inside of the 5-yard line. Now, they are going to get stuffed on this next play here, but Waller in the shotgun is in an empty backfield. She is scanning here and rips one to number 15, who scores the touchdown, Alana Romy here, and gives Baker a 1-point lead. The PAT is no good, but that is still good for 13-12 with 7:16 left in the third quarter. Ottawa gets the ball for the first time in the second half, and 2 short passes later, the Braves are out of their red zone. Carrera is going to roll left after they're out of the red zone and find Linkus, who gets ahead past the 35-yard line. The pressure from Baker results in a big loss on the following play, though, that does put Ottawa 8 yards away from midfield and a first down. And after a pass to the near sideline is caught, that sets up 4th and 4 till midfield. Ottawa uses a timeout here with 4 minutes and 8 seconds in the third to try and dial something up here. But it doesn't matter because the rush from Kayla Harrison is going to be enough to force an incompletion broken up by Mahogany Simmons here and give Baker the ball in Ottawa territory with about 3.5 minutes left to go in the third here. Now, it's going to be a short run by the quarterback here, and following another short gain, it's going to be 3rd and somewhat long here as Tara Lorente has a clutch scramble, pushing the Wildcats into the red zone with under 2 minutes to go in the third. Now, the huddle camera gets absolutely lost on this next play, but it's going to be a short gain anyway, and then another pass to Harris is caught and just short of the pylon by about 2 yards that ends the third quarter. To start the fourth quarter, Baker snaps the football and is getting ready to run here. It looks like Waller might have been ready to make it in, but the refs weren't ready or set or something like that, so they end up resetting. Little weird here, but anyways, on the next play here, or I should say on the first play of the fourth quarter, as they are official and running, it's going to be a snap to Waller, but it doesn't quite work. And then after a quick pass over the middle here, draws an Ottawa flag. Baker is in business here, trying to capitalize on being inside of the 5-yard line. Waller is in the gun and runs left, but gets clogged up, and they rule her just short of the end zone here. and they have a discussion to just confirm, but they confirm that she is short. And on the next play, they rule a penalty against Baker here that pushes them all the way back to the 11-yard line, where they then botch a snap, and then this just kind of kills the drive here as they try a ton of trickery on the very last play of their drive, but it results in 0 points. So huge missed opportunity for the Wildcats to take a lead here, or increase their lead, I should say, as Ottawa now has the ball on their own 5-yard line with about 8 minutes to go. Now, their first gain of this drive is going to be a pass right to Camacho, who gains a few, setting up 3rd and 6 before her number is called again, catching a pass and getting a first down. Now, Osborne is going to end up with the football and get a massive gain past midfield here, and now Ottawa only has 18 yards to go into the red zone, or until the red zone, after starting at their own 5-yard line here. A quick pass left here is going to be caught by number 13, Jada Bayron here. That's the first time we've called her name this game here, and gets ahead to the 33-yard line, and another quick gain gives them only 8 yards to go on 3rd down. On the next play, they find Jaslyn Camacho once again, who catches right and steams ahead, drawing a penalty on the defense, as well as giving Ottawa only 4 yards to go into the end zone. And with 5 minutes remaining, Carrera is going to roll right, throw across her body, and it's going to be caught by Linkus for her second receiving touchdown of the game here. The PAT is no good, and so Ottawa is ahead 18-13 with 4:40 left to go. Baker with a little under 5 minutes to go and a chance to beat Ottawa. Can they do it? Well, let's see here, as they have Waller and Lorente in the backfield to start. They snap to Waller, who runs left and sets up 2nd and 1, and another Waller snap gets a first down. However, on first down, outside of their own territory on the 22, Sue Kaufman is going to get a massive sack on the play here, pushing Baker back into their own red zone. But little worrying here as Sue is hopping off the field here. That is not the player that you want to see hurting when you need a game-winning stop for any defense, let alone this Ottawa defense, where she is just incredibly valuable and just one of the best players in the country at getting to the quarterback. So we hope that she is healthy and all right, especially as we get closer, I should say, into KCAC tournament play as well as nationals. But I digress a little bit here, as Baker still has a chance to win this game, but the next play is going to be dropped, and it is 3rd and eternity, it feels like, with 2.5 minutes to go. But Waller gets the ball after a few passes and sets up a way more manageable 4th and 13 with 2 minutes to go. Now, on this next play, Lorente is going to scan, look, buy some time, and heave a deep one that is caught by Jalen Harris all the way into the Ottawa 30-yard line with a massive head top, giving Baker a chance to take the lead now in Brave territory. But there is a flag on the play here, and it looks like they are calling an illegal forward pass. This is a tragic call here that negates a massive gain, and the worst part about it is that her back foot and leg are clearly behind the line of scrimmage cone. This is just a bad call, honestly. We looked up the rules just to be sure that it wasn't different in flag, but it's literally if any part of the body is behind, it is a legal pass. It's only if every part of the body is past the line of scrimmage is it illegal. And so that is going to cost a down here and give a turnover on downs, where Ottawa will be able to coast into an 18-13 W over Baker here. That leaves Ottawa still undefeated at 13-0 on the season, and that drops Baker to 7-5. But, gosh, I don't really know what more Baker could want out of this game, or what more they could ask their players. I mean, there were definitely mistakes made, but they really did have a chance. And they got a huge play at the end of the game to try and put them within striking distance. But it's just a tough call. And they'll just have to take that back to the film room and see what they can do from there. Baker on the day, Sanaya Waller here, 10 of 18, 72 yards and a touchdown. And Tara Lorente here, 6 of 8, 37 yards, and a touchdown here. Waller gaining 57 yards on the ground, being their biggest gainer on offense. Jalen Harris leading the way, 5 receptions, 38 yards, and a touchdown. And then Alana Romy here being the other touchdown recipient of Baker. As for the defense, like I said, Zabaleta with that huge pick here. And then as far as sacks here, Kayla Harrison getting to the quarterback a couple of times, Waller getting back there as well. But when we flip over to the Ottawa side, Sue Kaufman here with those big time sacks at the right time, also getting into the backfield, disrupting any runs that they were trying to do, and just applying tons of pressure here. Jacani Washington, the other notable stat here that I want to point out, 3 pass breakups. She was just absolutely locked in on her side of the ball and put in a great performance for this Ottawa defense. Now, for the offense here, Carrera doing her thing, 24 of 32, 224 yards, 3 touchdowns to just 1 interception. And then, meanwhile, Osborne gaining 21 yards on just 1 rush. That was a huge play that they needed just at the right time. And then in the receiving department, just spread out per usual. Osborne leading in receptions with 7 for 46 yards. Spielberg getting a receiving touchdown. Linkus getting 2 receiving touchdowns. And Camacho 6 receptions for 82 yards, leading the way in yards. That is going to do it for this recap here. Just an exciting week and lots of important games down the stretch for the KCAC here as we head forward.
All right, now let's go ahead and get into some Atlantic East Conference football play, some D3 flag football here, starting with Eastern versus Delaware. I mean, this would be Delaware's club team here. Just throwing that out there for the record. And on Wednesday, April 2nd, they would defeat them 18-0 pretty handedly there. So there you go there. Now let's get into some more D3 play here. We have Penn State Schuylkill playing Immaculata. And Immaculata once again would beat them 22-6 here. A big second or first half, I would say. And then third quarter would put them up those 20 points there. And then it looks like Penn State would score at the very end. Looking at the stats, Sydney Butcher, 10 of 19. This is for Immaculata, by the way. 10 of 19, 34 yards. Passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 29 yards rushing. Samantha Saidito, I want to say, at a 10-yard rushing touchdown. Lead receiver for them was Natalie Dodd, 4 receptions, 16 yards. Eliana Zatskowski caught a 16-yard touchdown reception in this one. Zatskowski also had a 75-yard pick 6 as well in this game, along with Rory Watson and Abigail Lentowski each having an interception as well. Defensively for Immaculata, Rory Watson led with 9 tackles, followed by Abigail Lentowski with 6. And then it looks like Jessica Elliott and Samantha Saidito each had a sack. For Penn State Schuylkill, the struggles kind of continue here, but they are being a little bit more productive through the air. Riley Cinco, 227 passing yards, 23 of 35, 1 touchdown, but 3 picks. Nadia King, 6 receptions, 93 yards. Malik Mawafi, 8 for 62, and a touchdown, that lone one at the end. And then on defense for Penn State, Sierra Wisniewski, 6 tackles that led the team. And then Nadia King had an interception in this game, but not enough to beat Immaculata as Penn State falls to them 22-6. Moving on, Immaculata would then play Keene College, which is a D3, but they are not part of the Atlantic East, so that's interesting there. And actually, now that I'm looking at Keene, they do not have names next to their numbers here, which is kind of weird. In fact, I could not find a roster for Keene College. So I'm just going to go over the stats here for the teams that are playing them. But unfortunately here for Immaculata, they would fall to Keene 12-0. A 12-point second half would give them that win here. Sydney Butcher, 13 of 20, 113 yards, 2 picks. Natalie Dodd also threw an interception. Kaya Harris was their leading rusher with 11 yards. Abigail Lentowski was their lead receiver with 6 receptions for 80 yards. And then Immaculata on defense, Rory Watson once more led with 10 tackles. No interceptions this game, but only 1 pick. For Keene, like I said, I have no idea why they don't have a roster, but number 22 at quarterback, 6 of 13, 58 yards and a touchdown. Also had 51 rushing yards. The lone touchdown was caught by number 11 for Keene, and then it looks like number 3 for them had a big-time pick 6, a 65-yarder, to go ahead and pretty much put this one away as Keene University beats Immaculata. Moving on, Keene would then play Penn State Schuylkill here, and they would also beat them to go 2-0 on the day, 26-14. And this one really wasn't close. Keene had 20 points in the first quarter, 20-0, and then Penn State would score their 14 in the fourth quarter, so garbage time points there. Let's start with Keene here. Number 22 for them, 3 of 6, 47 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Also 27 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Number 3 had 1 big 43-yard receiving touchdown, so there's that there. And then on defense for Keene, number 3 led or co-led with number 13 and 26 with 2 tackles each. And then number 2 had a pick, number 9 had a pick, and then it looks like number 1 had 2 interceptions for a total of 4 interceptions for them. For Penn State Schuylkill here, like I said, really couldn't find anything until the fourth quarter. And Nadia King, 10 of 15, 51 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Riley Cinco, only 1 for 7, 6 yards, 3 interceptions. Rough day for her. Receiving wise, Malik Mawafi, 8 receptions, 38 yards, and a touchdown. Mawafi also had it looks like a pick 6, I want to say. Yes, a pick 6 in this game. I could be wrong. Actually, I think this is just an interception. I could be wrong here. These stats are kind of confusing me a little bit. But for Penn State, Sierra Wisniewski, 4 tackles, 1 sack. And then Riley Cinco, 3.5 sacks here 3.5 tackles in this game as Penn State falls to Keene 26-14. All right, now moving on to the Friday slate of games. It's Immaculata versus Holy Family and Newman. We'll talk about these two first here. And to start, Immaculata takes care of Holy Family 28-14. They were winning 21-0 at half here, and then Holy Family would score 14 in the fourth. Some garbage time touchdowns, but Immaculata winning pretty comfortably here. Sydney Butcher had a good game, 10 of 11 for 123 yards and 3 touchdowns, also 65 rushing yards. Great game from her. Natalie Dodd, 4 for 38 and a rushing touchdown. As far as receiving goes, Kaya Harris led with 1 big 39-yard receiving touchdown. Abigail Lentowski had 3 for 32 and a touchdown. Eliana Zatkowski had 3 receptions for 30 yards and a touchdown. For Immaculata on defense, Rory Watson, 7 tackles. That would lead the team here. And then Lauren Gartman would have an interception for them. For Holy Family, the struggle for them, at least against Immaculata, continues. Like I said, down by a lot very early on. But it looks like Alice Davis went 5 of 7 for 107 yards and a touchdown, which obviously came at the end. Jalissa Deos, I think, started 3 of 7 at quarterback, 14 yards, 1 interception here. Morgan Sims also threw a pass. Davis had 91 rushing yards, though, and a rushing touchdown. So there's that other touchdown. And then it looks like Kieran Cusick had 1 big 66-yard receiving touchdown from Alice Davis here to get them on the board as well for Holy Family. Now on defense, it was Kieran Cusick who led with 6 tackles, and then they would not get any sacks or interceptions in this game. Immaculata takes care of business against Holy Family 28-14. The other game Immaculata had was against Newman, and this one was not close as they would shut them out 33-0 in this game. Let's start with Newman, actually. Gia Santorello, 13 of 21, 88 yards, 3 interceptions. Did have 70 rushing yards, though. Her lead receiver was Chloe Ballou, 7 for 46, and then Kayla Maish, I want to say, 4 for 41. On defense for them, Nyla Naheem, 5 tackles. That would lead the team here. And then Chloe Ballou and Rebecca Naboy, I want to say, each had a sack each. No interceptions for Newman. For Immaculata, they were cooking in this game. Sydney Butcher, 8 of 9, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also had a rushing touchdown and 10 rushing yards to go with that. Natalie Dodd, 3 for 3, 20 yards and a touchdown as well. Dodd also had 21 rushing yards. As far as receiving goes, Eliana Zatkowski led with 3 receptions for 38 yards. And then Rory Watson had the hat trick here, 3 receptions for 34 yards, all receptions going for touchdowns for Immaculata. On defense, Theresa Japa here, 9 tackles that will lead the team here. Abigail Lintowski had 2 interceptions. Eliana Zatkowski had an interception, and then Rory Watson also 3 pass breakups. Rory Watson having herself a game in this one against Newman as they take care of business 33-0. All right, now let's get to the Saturday slate of games, April 5th. To start, we have Eastern versus Centenary, and Eastern dominates this matchup 32-0. Let's start with Centenary stats here. Eve Haddad, 4 of 8, 21 yards, 3 interceptions. Jenna Magrino, 1 of 3, and an interception as well. Magrino was their lead rusher with 31 yards, and then their lead receiver was Tanya Ellsbury with 2 receptions for 20 yards. On defense for Centenary, Anaya Peralta led with 4 tackles. And then it looks like Magrino had 2 interceptions as well, but unfortunately the offense was not able to do much with that. Centenary, on the other hand, had a pretty solid game. Kira Green, 7 of 17, 46 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Kind of struggled here, but offensively, they still found a way to get it done, as well as defensively. Stephanie White on the ground was their lead rusher, 72 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kira Green also had 35 rushing yards and a touchdown. Jariah Johnson had 3 receptions for 25 yards and a receiving touchdown as their lead receiver. And then most importantly, defensively, Eastern had a great game. Stephanie White and Sinead, I think that's how you say it, Tyler, each had 7 tackles. White with an interception. Shania Schloss had a sack in this game. And then Jariah Johnson, Geiger, and Trinity Upton each had an interception, holding Centenary down here as Eastern wins 32-0. And by the way, up to now, Eastern, I think, number 2 so far in the conference, only to Marymount, who is number 1. And Marymount, they would play Centenary, and they would dominate them 41-0. For Centenary, Eve Haddad, 7 of 10, 25 yards, 1 interception. Magrino had 22 rushing yards. Brianna Worthy had 3 receptions, 25 yards. Those are their leaders. Magrino had 4 tackles. Brianna Worthy had a sack, and then no interceptions caught by Centenary. For Marymount, they're rolling. Kara Volmer, 10 of 14 for 154 yards and 5 touchdowns. Also added on a rushing touchdown as well, 24 rushing yards too. Kayla Barr, 2 rushes for 46 yards, which was just insane. And then receiving wise, so many receivers got to eat in this game. Starting with their lead receiver, Carly Rivera, 3 for 85 and a touchdown. Kayla Barr, 2 for 27 and 2 touchdowns. Yuralise Torres, 1 22-yard receiving touchdown. And then Jayla Thompson also had a touchdown in this one. Defensively, Marymount has been on top of it. Ashley Ayala Mata led with 6 tackles here, and then they only had 1 interception from Jayla Thompson, but that was enough as they had really good flag pulling against Centenary on their way to a 41-0 win here for Marymount. Now, going back to Eastern here, Eastern would then play Marymount, so basically a battle, probably the conference championship right here. I would say maybe I am getting ahead of myself, but I think this is basically the conference championship, Eastern versus Marymount. And this would be a pretty tight game here, but Marymount would win 12-0. They would score a touchdown in the second and the fourth to put this one away. And Eastern, I mean, they had their chances, just couldn't quite get it down. Let's start with Marymount. Kara Volmer, 9 of 14, 94 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Did have a rushing touchdown as well as 10 yards. Her lead receiver was Carly Rivera once more, 5 for 77 receiving yards, and then Jayla Thompson caught her lone touchdown there. For Marymount on defense, Leslie Villegas, I want to say, or Villegas, had 7 tackles. Carly Rivera with 7 tackles. Leslie also had a sack in this one. I think this is pronounced Kaya Pride. She had a sack in this game, and then Yerlis Torres, Samantha Bulick each had an interception, which ended up being big time as, Eastern only lost by 12. For Eastern, Kira Green, 16 of 23, 114 yards, 2 interceptions. Stephanie White was their lead rusher with 20 yards. Their lead receiver was Damaye Moye, 7 receptions for 64 yards. Stephanie White, 6 for 22. Jariah Johnson, 2 for 14 in this one. On defense, Jariah Johnson led with 8 tackles. Damaye Moye had an interception in this game, and then Kendall Williams had a sack, but just not enough offensively, I would say, for Eastern to win this one as they get shut out 12-0. And I believe this was basically the regular season conference championship, because they don't play again here, as currently as the standings go, Marymount is now 7-0. Eastern is, overall wise, is 7-3, 5-3 in the Atlantic East. Centenary right behind them at 5-5, both in Atlantic East and overall. You have Immaculata, who's at 5-5 with an overall 5-6, and then the bottom 3 is Holy Family, who's 3-4, Newman 3-5, and Penn State Schuylkill, who is 1-7 right now. So tough go. A tough go for those bottom 3 here, but it is the first season. A lot can happen here, but right now it looks like Marymount is going to be your Atlantic East Conference champions, assuming they don't lose the rest of their games here. But even then, they have all of their head-to-heads against Eastern at this point here, and so there you go. They're an exciting week of Atlantic East Conference play. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about Playmaker of the Week. Week 7 Playmaker of the Week brought to you by Code Red Coaching. Make sure you find Code Red Coaching at coderedcoaching.com or call 720-979-1914 to learn more today. That is coderedcoaching.com or call 720-979-1914 today. Now, a lot of players to consider for Playmaker of the Week. Caitlin Shannon out of Graceland, obviously in our minds as well. Keelan Coleman from Thomas, quarterback, who had a great week against, Warner, and I want to say Weber as well. Just to name a couple players who played great football. Madison Carrera over at Ottawa. And this was hard to decide here. I think this is the most deserving right now is Florida Memorial's freshman wide receiver / cornerback, Amiria Smith here. She had a great game in their upset win over Life, where they won 26-25. They were down 19-6 at half, and then she would go off here. And this Florida Memorial team would go off to go ahead and beat them 26-25, but she was a big part of that. As their lead receiver, 11 receptions, 145 yards, and the hat trick, 3 receiving touchdowns in this game. And then on defense, did not have any flag poles, but also had 2 pass breakups there. That is absolutely big time, as FMU gets arguably the biggest upset of the season here. And it's part and thanks to the big performance from Amiria Smith here, who, hopefully I'm saying her name right, it might be Amiria Smith, but either way, she had a great performance in this one. And even though there's so many playmakers to keep in mind this week, I think she really stood alone in this one, as well as FMU, who is having the best season, which isn't saying a lot, but to date here right now with their 4 wins, this being their 4th win. So there you go, your Week 7 Playmaker of the Week, brought to you by Code Red Coaching, is Florida Memorial's freshman athlete, Amiria Smith. All right, now let's go ahead and get to our NAIA rankings here in Week 7. In case you forgot how we do them, myself, Kodey, and Gino rank teams 1 through 22. If any of us rank a team at number 1, they receive 22 points, 2, 21, 3, 20, and so on and so on. I then add up all the points. The team with the most points is near the top. That's how we average out these rankings. And so myself, Kodey, and Gino, we have our individual rankings, right, which I will refer to. And then we have our PMC rankings, which I will also refer to. Those are the average ones. So we all have some pretty different opinions from time to time, and I think it's very, very obvious in these week 7 rankings that we have some different opinions. But before we get there, let's go to week 6 here. Here are the rankings from week 6. At 22 was Bethel, 21 St. Mary, 20 Reinhardt, 19 Point, 18 Florida Memorial, 17 Kodey, 16 Graceland, 15 Siena Heights, 14 Southwestern, 13 Campbellsville, 12 Midland, 11 was William Woods, 10 Life, 9 Milligan, 8 Kansas Wesleyan, 7 Weber, 6 Baker, 5 Warner, 4 St. Thomas, 3 Keiser, 2 Thomas, and at number 1 is Ottawa. Now, the first 4 teams in, that is, so 19 through 22 are all the same. That's Bethel, St. Mary, Reinhardt, and Point. So 22 Bethel, 21 St. Mary, 20 Reinhardt, 19 is Point. But from 18 to basically 5, it is pretty crazy. A lot of changes there, so slight spoiler alert. But let's start with Bethel here at 22. Gino said they haven't scored any points in 2 weeks. Kay said nothing to say, and I don't have anything more to say. They're still here at 22. At 21 is St. Mary, who stays right here. Gino says same old story for the Spires after falling to Kansas Wesleyan this week. Kodey has St. Mary actually at 20 instead of 21. And he said lost to Kansas Wesleyan. That's pretty much it there. And yeah, I mean, they weren't going to beat Kansas Wesleyan. I think that went as expected. That's why they're right here. At 20 is Reinhardt still here. Gino says not much to be excited about here, which I agree with. Kodey says, what is even going on here, bro? As he actually has them at 21 below St. Mary's. So there you go. I mean, like I said, no big surprises. At 19, though, is Point. This is what Gino had to say about them. He says, put up a decent fight against Weber, but that's not enough for me to rise them in the rankings. And that's true. Only lost 20-6, so there you go. Kodey said they just got to keep on keeping on, which I agree with. I mean, that's definitely an improvement from where they were last year. Last year, I felt like that was a way worse game. This year, it was a closer game, but Weber, they took care of it regardless. And so for now, they don't move up, but it's obvious that Point is better compared to last year. So there you go. Now 18 is our first change here. Moving down a spot is Kodey. And they did not even play this week, so there's really not much more to say. I think it's mostly because other teams have moved up here. One of those teams being FMU, Florida Memorial, who moves up a spot from 18 to 17 as they have improved the last 2 weeks, actually, in our rankings. Gino had this to say about FMU. The Lions are rolling after getting their second NAIA win of the season over Life. This is the type of momentum you like to see before the end of the season, which I cannot agree more with. And then Kodey says Amiria Smith posting, and that's it. But you know, I really like FMU. They're continuing to roll here in my personal rankings. I think I moved them up. Let me just look at this real quick. For me personally, they moved up 3 spots from 18, I want to say, to 15 here. And, you know, I really liked what I saw in this Life game. You know, they put up a really good fight against a pretty solid Life team who was in our top 10 for a while now. And for them to not only put up a fight, but come back from being down multiple scores and winning this game says a lot about where this culture is and where it's going. For the first time in what feels like almost 2 years, I really like where FMU is going. So we see them over there keep up the good work, and we love that they're getting better here. So there you go. Now at 16 is Campbellsville, who drops 3 spots, and they just had a really rough week here. This is what Gino had to say about them. He says Campbellsville is dropping a spot this week after falling to Graceland and Siena Heights. Kodey said this about Campbellsville. Whoops, all in caps. Those are some tough pills to swallow for a Tiger team that was trending up last week. Consistency is key, and they're still trying to piece that consistency together, which I do have to agree with. And honestly, it's tough because Campbellsville losing those games, you know, and FMU also winning a big one, moved FMU and Siena Heights above them for me, as well as Graceland, Southwestern, all of those squads. But honestly, that's just a sign of where we feel like they are. They're very close to these other teams, and they only lost to Graceland by 5. They lost to both Graceland and Siena Heights by 5 points. And they had opportunities to win that game, and they just could not quite get those wins here. And against NAIA teams, that's important, right? Those margins of victory are very, very small here. And unfortunately for Campbellsville, they found themselves on the other side of it. One game being just their defense not being as disciplined as they could be, and the other one being their offense not being as sharp as they could be. So a tough go. They do drop 3 spots, but like I said, or have been saying all year long, they are very close to the rest of these teams. Now, speaking of these teams, at 15 still is Siena Heights, one of the few teams who did not move up or down here in this little area. This is what Gino had to say. Siena Heights got revenge over Campbellsville, but that loss to Graceland is keeping them from rising much higher, which I gotta agree with. Kodey had this to say about Siena Heights: big win over Campbellsville for some revenge, and decent showing at their own hosted event here. And I gotta agree, it was a solid, they hosted a good event here, I thought, and it was a solid showing. Got to beat Campbellsville, which was good. That was just one they had to grit out, and then they did not play bad against some of the other teams either. Now, moving on, let's go ahead and talk about Life. They are here at 14, moving down 4 spots out of the top 10 for the first time in almost a month here. Let's see what Gino has to say about Life. He has to say this: you put up a great fight against St. Thomas, and then you lose to Florida Memorial? I don't understand this at all, but Life is dropping a few spots this week. Kodey had this to say about Life. He said, I wanted to keep them up for their performance against STU, but losing to Florida Memorial is just unacceptable, as I'm hammering them here in the rankings. And according to Kodey's own rankings, personal rankings, Life actually drops from 10 to 18, just below Kodey here. Not as drastic a drop for myself and Gino. They do drop out of the top 10 by 2 spots in mine, and then by a couple of spots in Gino's here. But that drop is by Kodey is mostly why Life is right here at 14. And the thing that makes it worse is that they were leading by 2 scores in that game. And then they allowed Florida Memorial to get back into it and win it. And that's just something that you cannot allow happen here as a top 10 team. Now, playing St. Thomas close, that's a good sign here. I think that kind of balances some things out. In my opinion, it shows that they're a team that, is still young. They're going to make some young mistakes. Mistakes like playing a contender in St. Thomas close and then losing to the worst team in the Sun Conference after being up by 2 scores at half. So, it is what it is. All they could do now is move on from it, but right now they are outside of the top 10, almost outside the top 15 at this point. Now at 13 is Southwestern, who moves up a spot. And by the way, shout out to Southwestern for the very kind DM that they sent us the other day. But this is what Gino had to say. The Mound Builders are extremely lucky to not be falling in the rankings this week. That Midland game was rough. Kodey had this to say about Southwestern. Against more experienced teams, this is to be expected, but way to blow the brakes off of Bethel here. And yeah, Southwestern, they do move up here slightly, but it's mostly because Life has dropped below them. So there you go there. I thought the Midland game would be closer, and it was not close at all, so that's unfortunate. Now at 12 is Graceland, who is beginning to rise up here again after a really good weekend. This is what Gino had to say. He said, I decided to bump up the Yellow Jackets a couple spots after they beat Campbellsville and Siena Heights. Kodey had this to say: big weekend for the Yellow Jackets, who beat Campbellsville and Siena Heights in upsets. Still settling in, it feels like maybe turning the corner at the right time, which, is definitely a good thing. Those 2 wins against Campbellsville and Siena Heights, those are wins against teams that are directly above them, or at least compared to last week's rankings, they were directly above them. And, they're good wins, close wins, right? Showing that they could also lose to those teams. But at this point, wins are wins here. And by the way, shout out Caitlin Shannon, who is their starting quarterback, and I believe is still calling the defense over there. I want to say the only player coach in the country right now, and she's doing a pretty good job for them. Was very clutch this weekend. So there you go. Now at 11 is Midland, who does move up a spot here. Gino had this to say about Midland. Made light work of a very solid Southwestern squad, so there's definitely some positive momentum going Midland's way before the KCAC tournament. Kodey said this: dispatched Southwestern easily, and when they play with the experience they have, they're pretty legit. And yeah, I mean, this is a team that has been up and down, and I feel like it has mirrored its quarterback play at times here. But at its core, they're an experienced team. When they're on, you know. So there you go. Now, to begin our top 10, right now we have William Woods, who moves into our top 10, I believe, for the first time ever, our PMC top 10 here, as they move up a spot. Did not play this week, but with life losing, William Woods goes ahead and slot themselves in. Got to see them last week live, and they looked really good. Offensively, they're explosive. Defensively, they are, I would say, one of the few very good man-to-man teams in the entire country. Plus, they have a premier pass rusher in Yvonne Russell over there. So that's pretty big. I mean, they're a good team. Still very young, right? Working with their new head coach, shout out Coach Holloway, who we got to meet last week as well. Good guy over there. Colorado guy, by the way. So shout out him. And their future's bright right now. Now at 9 is Weber, who does slide just a little bit here. Gino has this to say about Weber: barely beat point, and then you get absolutely squashed against Thomas. It's definitely time for Weber to drop a couple of spots. Kodey had this to say about Weber: minuscule adjustment, but sliding Weber down with some big losses to the heavyweights here. Losing to Thomas, I think, was expected, but I think we all expected maybe a little bit more of a dominant win against Point. So there you go there. Now at 8 is Milligan, who moves up a spot here. I want to say we all moved up Milligan a spot. So there you go. This is what Gino had to say. Milligan is looking unstoppable right now after defeating Siena Heights and Graceland for their 9th and 10th wins in a row. Kodey said, I really like what this Buffs team has to offer and just wish they got to play more KCAC or Sun Conference teams, but Bridget Keiser is one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the nation. Ashton Weirley is a great gadget piece and safety. Sarah Rancorn has made her presence felt amongst other athletes stepping up. This Buff ceiling is high. And yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, this Milligan team is still pretty young. A lot of their core players are underclassmen or they're just juniors right now. And they're playing good football. Right now, they're on a 10-game hot streak here. I don't know if that's going to break until they get to nationals over in Kansas City. And so things could get really interesting for them here as the year goes on. And, you know, they could be hitting this other tier, this next tier of dark horse contenders. So we'll just have to see what happens. Now, at 7 is Kansas Wesleyan, who does move up a spot here. Gino had this to say about K-Dub. He said, nice win over St. Mary, but Milligan is pounding on the door to take their spot in the rankings. Kodey had this to say about K-Dub. Took care of business against USM, but the game against Baker is the one to monitor. And I have to agree there. I think I am actually the only one who moved Milligan ahead of Kansas Wesleyan. At least right now, I have Milligan ahead of Kansas Wesleyan. Milligan has been playing very good football, consistent. You know, definitely some recency bias there here, but I agree with Gino. They're definitely knocking on that door here. Now, at 6 is Warner, who, you know, just stays right here. Gino had this to say: that game versus Thomas was not pretty at all. The Royals offense just isn't what you want to see from a championship contender. Kodey had this to say about Warner: just not the performance I was looking for from the Royals against a contender. And yeah, I gotta agree, me and Gino were watching that game against Thomas, and despite all the weapons they have, just could not move the ball here. And on top of that, their defense did not look good either against a Thomas team who, is starting a freshman quarterback in Keelan Coleman, albeit a very talented one, but she kind of did whatever she wanted against that Warner defense, it felt, and that's not a good thing here. I wouldn't hit the panic button. I mean, Thomas, they're obviously a good team here, and I mean, you'll see where I have Thomas ranked right now. But Warner, I mean, they just got to perform better moving forward. That's just what it comes down to. So there you go. For now, they stay outside the top 5. In the top 5, though, and actually, my apologies, Warner does move down because they were at 5. Now they move down to 6. Now at 5 is a new team, and it's Baker. This is what Gino had to say. That game against Ottawa came down to a questionable call in the end. So Baker Wildcat stock is definitely rising right now. Kodey had this to say: they had the lead and were in prime position to knock off number 1, so I slid them up. And yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, that was a game they could have won there. I mean, they had their opportunities, right? They had an opportunity to go up 2 scores or at least, extend the lead to a 7-8 point lead, right? They had that opportunity. They dropped the snap on 4th down. They also had the opportunity to pick up a 1st down, and they called a legal forward pass. I'm not going to lie. From the stream, it looked like, to me, it looked like that she was behind the line, because I believe the rule book is that, or the rule when it comes to a legal forward pass in the rule book is that her whole body has to be in front of the line of scrimmage here when the ball is released. And it looked like that there was, like, her whole back leg was behind it. It could have just been the angle. Maybe it was just wrong, but I do think that was a very quick flag to throw right there. And, I mean, that was a big 30-yard reception or 20-plus yard reception that they got. And I just think that game easily could have went the other way here. And Baker, they've been playing good football. Terry Lorente has really turned the corner here, and that's a good thing. So right now they're at 5. Keep an eye on them. They could make some noise here. So just keep an eye on them. Now at 4, or really our top 4 is all the same, but at 4 is St. Thomas. Gino said that Life game was a little closer than expected, but the Bobcats are still firmly the number 4 team in the country. Kodey said, competing against similar opponents, I like that STU played Thomas closer than Warner. I don't talk about that often, but with those deficits, it's worth noting. And yeah, I mean, agreed there 100%. The St. Thomas team is playing good football right now. And going into this postseason tournament, I really think things could get interesting, or could at least feel interesting. So let's just see what happens here moving forward, though. At 3 is Keiser. They stay right here. Gino says there won't be any movement for Thomas or Keiser until they play each other again in the KCAC tournament. Kodey said there's still a serious threat for a natty in my opinion. And yeah, I gotta agree. Played Florida Gateway kind of close, but Florida Gateway is a very talented team. Got a lot of great players over there, including Kayla Ludwig, and love what she's been doing so far this season. So for Keiser to shut them out, I think that's a pretty good deal here. You want to see a couple of tough defensive games from Keiser, because you already know their offense is going to be there. So there you go there. But Keiser sits here at 3. Now at 2 is Thomas. Kodey and Gino have Thomas at 2. I actually have Thomas at 1, but let me go over Gino and Kodey's reasons real quick here. Gino says 2 wins over 2 top 7 teams is amazing. Thomas is still a strong contender for that 1 spot. Kodey said this, man, that was an absolute whooping the Nighthawks handed out, and they are just as much a serious number 1 in the country. Now, I have actually ranked Thomas at 1, and Kodey and Gino has Ottawa at 1, so obviously things aren't going to change, but that margin is definitely smaller here. First off, Thomas, congrats. They are the regular season Sun Conference champs here, back at it after last year. I don't think they were regular season champs. I know they weren't, postseason champs in that tournament, so it's good to see them get back here. They've had a dominant season. I mean, they're undefeated right now, and they dominated a very good Warner team. They also beat teams like Keiser and St. Thomas as well over the last couple weeks. In my opinion, they've had more dominant wins against better opponents, or they've at least had more wins against better opponents as of right now. Playing Keiser, St. Thomas, Warner, that's tough, right? That's absolutely tough. And so I respect that a little bit more. With Ottawa winning the way they did this last week here, with a call that I felt like at the very least could be considered 50-50, I just have Thomas number one right now. It's just my gut feeling. Both of them are undefeated, right? But right now I got Thomas personally number one. But actually, in our PMC rankings at number one is Ottawa. This is what Gino and Kodey had to say. Gino says that was a huge scare against Baker, so the Braves are definitely going to have to look in if they want to avoid an upset in the next couple weeks. Kodey said the Braves snuck this one out and probably have the rest of the KCAC screaming at the clouds a little bit. Like any team, they are beatable, and this was a reminder they got to stay locked in. And I agree. I think this Ottawa team, obviously they've been national champs the last couple of years. That goes without saying, right? But I do legit think this Ottawa offense has a way of scoring on almost any defense in the country. They may not score a whole bunch, against the best defenses in the country, but they have multiple ways of finding a way to score at any point, right? Addie Osborne came up big in this game, by the way, and she had a very good game in my opinion. So there's that. Their defense, I think, is a very good defense. I think versatility-wise, they could play any offense pretty well and match up pretty well here. What it's going to come down to is how locked in they are in these last couple weeks. Right now, they're undefeated. But they are definitely running out of games that they could afford to lose. You can afford to lose regular season games. It's fine. But you can't afford to get eliminated in the KCAC tournament, and obviously you can't afford to get eliminated in the national tournament, which, they'll be playing closer to home too, so there is that to consider as well. Pressure's building for Ottawa, right? And it's all internal, if anything, because I think externally, they don't care what other people say. So internally, they know that they got to get the job done. They've got it done the last 3 years, going for a fourth, right? But they are running out of time to make those mistakes. The stakes get higher and the margins get smaller here in the next couple weeks in the last month of this season here. And that's where things get interesting. So we'll see what happens. But right now, they're at number one, which, honestly, I do think is still well-deserved. So there you go. Our rankings go. Number 22, Bethel. 21, St. Mary. 20, Reinhardt. 19 Point. 18, Kodey. 17, Florida Memorial. Resurging just a little bit. 16, Campbellsville. 15, Siena Heights. 14, Life. 13, Southwestern. 12, Graceland. 11, Midland. 10, William Woods. 9, Weber. 8, Milligan. 7, Kansas Wesleyan. 6, Warner. 5, Baker. 4, St. Thomas. 3, Keiser. 2, Thomas. And at number one, right now, as undefeated team in the country for the, I think, 7th straight week, is Ottawa. All right, thank you so much for rocking with us. We are almost at the end of this season here. One more week of Sun Conference play, 2 more weeks of KCAC. I know the independents will continue to go, but we are approaching the end here, so you know what that means. That means that end of the year awards and those polls will be going up soon here. I think most likely we're still going to do Twitter/X polls. If we change it, we'll obviously let you know on the episode and we'll let you know on social media. But right now, that is looking like what we're going to do. So just keep an eye out for those here in the next couple weeks. And per usual, if there's anything we missed, mispronounced, or if you have any knowledge you could give us for our following episodes, feel free to hit us up on social media at Playmakers Corner, where you could also find a bunch of other content like highlights from our weekend over at Campbellsville, those game highlights and interviews that should be going up here soon. So there you go. But until then, we'll catch you next time.